Rod, you've been in business 4 years. You've broken into a market that is really well entrenched in the ways they do business. And you chose to use the market as a platform. Why did you do that?
My main reason was almost a disruption in itself, because you would go onto a market in any market town and you wouldn't see a funeral director on the marketplace, would you? You know, you really wouldn't. And so consequently, that it was proof of the pie was in the eating. Within the first, I'd say, 3 months, we had an awful lot of people raising their eyebrows and saying, "Cool, I'm not ready for you yet, mate." You know, and so they did notice you there. And the thing is that you can buy numerous adverts and project yourself in lots of different ways, but to get in front of 2,000 local people every single Wednesday, I would suggest that's a brilliant way of doing it. And it has, in fact, translated into, I would say, the lion's share of the business that we've done over the years, especially when you're talking about funeral plans. Because, of course, you can talk about funerals, you can talk in general terms, and it's, you know, it can be a very touchy subject. We've had some tears and all sorts of things on the marketplace, you know, but you can talk to people about funeral plans, and of course they'd rather talk to a real person than dealing perhaps online or ringing a helpline number. And as I always say to them, when buying a funeral plan, please, even if you don't pick me, use a funeral director to buy a funeral plan, because at the end of the day, that funeral director or someone like him will have to deliver it, and better to talk to someone that actually delivers funerals as opposed to someone that just sells funeral plans.
I think that's good advice. And I suppose the nature of death is that we think we've got forever. You know, people say, "I'm not ready for you yet," and I often wonder whether they have got the date in their diary. But it can be a sensitive subject. And as you say, speaking to somebody that knows that business is important. And I suppose engaging with people, gradually getting to know you, to see the human side, to see that you're very thoughtful, and you don't seem to have a hidden agenda that maybe some other people have, because they've got to mark up for the limousines they've got, the hearse they've got. You can at least give really sound advice.
Yeah, because I think when I first started, I literally had come out of training with another funeral director, and didn't really have any conceptions or misconceptions, whichever way you look at it. I didn't have an agenda at all. And so when I looked at, and the colleague that helped me launch the business, he wanted to buy a hearse. And I wondered how we could justify it, as we didn't have any funerals lined up at the moment. You know, we'd only been in business for 6 weeks, and he's wanting to buy a hearse, you know. No. We had a very good connection with the chap that I trained with, and until this day, he supplies me with his hearse and limousine. And so I felt that justifying the purchase of a hearse was not something we could justify. And also, what I realised probably a year down the line was that because I didn't have a hearse, I could still offer members of the public delivery at the crematorium in our private ambulance, which cut the cost down considerably. And in fact, if you look on my website, you'll see that there's 2 city plans. One's basic and one's the normal city plan, and the difference is literally £500. And that's not just due to the hearse, that's due to the men and all the things around that, because it's a lot easier for us to deliver the coffin in our private ambulance if they don't want the the theatre part of a funeral. So if they're looking for low fee, no fuss, low fee, then there's ways of keeping it reasonable. Whereas if you can imagine, if you've got a fleet of vehicles, and you're going to want to sell that particular part of your service.
So part of the co-op, and all co-ops are not the same, but I know that there's been some fuss in the press recently of a certain branch of the co-op in London actually working to targets and upselling these services. It puzzles me. I can understand why in marketing terms the funeral market has has been to be locked away in generations and generations. And I look at most funeral companies and they've got austere windows, austere desks, and those funeral directors are sat behind those. Whereas in marketing today, it's about attracting attention but engaging with the public before they perhaps know that they need that service. And you would sooner go to a funeral director who you've got to know, even if it's just on the market, than somebody you just don't know.
And that's another reason why I use my image, because I think they should know who the funeral director is, and you know, almost before they talk to you on the phone or engage you on the market, they know who you are because they've seen either your advert or your website. And also on my website, all my prices are there, so they know before they even pick up the phone about the cost.
A lot of people are researching their purchase or what they want to do on the internet before they actually come to get in front of somebody that wants to buy. I think this eludes many people. They think that when somebody rings and approaches them that it's a fresh call. It's not. They've already made those researches. So it is very important that you have a good presence on both digitally and in person.
I know, I can remember a lady phoning me from Glastonbury, and I think I might have been the 5th or the 6th perhaps funeral director she'd called, and she straight away said, you probably won't be interested in talking to me. My husband's died 3 weeks ago, he's in Yeovil Hospital and no one wants to help me get him cremated. I have no money, and the HMRC are going to help. And the Army Benevolent Fund are going to top it up. And this was obviously a job for a director crematorium, but it needed to be handled in a delicate way, and there was not going to be an awful lot of profit in it. But my view was that someone's got to help this poor lady, and not only that, surely if we did the right job, she would recommend us to many, many people. And so we managed to deal with that cremation for that lady, and I know when I went over to see her, the pressure came off her, straight away, because she was so worried about, well, naturally, her husband had been in the hospital for the last 3 weeks, in the mortuary department.
So a funeral director is definitely in the centre of the community, and he's there to serve the people of that community.